Hello guys and gals, and welcome. So I have a special little video for you guys and gals out there who play Diablo 2 Resurrected. And it was prompted by many comments and things here or there about people who didn't know about some fairly new, quite common features that are, well, hot items for sure. And one older feature, which for some reason or another still has eluded quite a large number of people. So I present to you my video, 5 features you may have missed. So in Diablo 2 Resurrected, there are a lot of various little things that could potentially overlook. And one of the most glaring features that is definitely one that is overlooked by a lot of people is a patch that I believe it was a update in 2.4.3 that allows you to be able to bind your Horadric cube to a button. That's right. So this one is the Horadric cube button, or rather the lack thereof. There actually is no Horadric cube button, but they added the feature for it so that you could bind it. It is unfortunately unbound. This means that you have to go into the settings and you have to actually enable it, and I'm going to show you very quickly how to do that. You're going to press escape and you're going to go to options, and then you're going to go to controls, and you will find this button right here that says Horadric cube. And when you come into this window, it is not going to be bound to anything, which basically means that it's useless and you don't even know that it exists, although it was added in a patch previously. Now, to use it, you actually have to bind it, and I have chosen the H key as my bind because H is the help key anyway, and I don't need the help key. I haven't needed it for a very long time. So when you press the H key, now it will bring up your Horadric cube. This is different, of course, than pressing the I key, which brings up your inventory, and then right-clicking on your cube, which brings up your Horadric cube that way. This is a shortcut, essentially, that prevents you from having to press I and then right-click. Instead, you could just press H, and the Horadric cube is now open. Another feature that was added at the same time was specifically for controller. This is the Loot to Horadric cube button, and it was added basically in response to the fact that, obviously we didn't have the same options on the consoles and the controller variant of the PC. But if you go to the skill tree and you go over to general skills and you go down, you will find a button that literally just says Loot to Horadric cube. And it's very obvious because it has a picture of the cube with a hand. And what you do is you bind this to a button. Whatever button that you choose. And then when something falls on the ground, like for instance, let me just go ahead and drop one of my skillers, and I press X, you will notice that now it has went directly to my Horadric cube. Very useful, in fact, if you want to fill up your entire inventory. This will give you a way to still pick up items as long as you have your Horadric cube in your inventory. This is unfortunately only available to Nintendo Switch, Xbox, PlayStation, and PC users that are using the controller. The Loot to Horadric cube button does not work when you are utilizing the keyboard and mouse on the PC, so do keep that in mind. The next is the feature known as Quick Cast. Quick Cast is a feature that was enabled back in 2.4, and it is something that you have to turn on, and I'm going to show you how to do that really quickly. The next feature that we're going to be talking about is the skill hotbar, and that is also a feature that needs to be turned on. Both of these are in the gameplay options, and you will find the Quick Cast skills right here, which you need to turn on. And the display active skill bindings, which is the hotbar. Alright, so make sure you have the quick cast skills checked and the display active skill bindings checked, and then hit apply. And what will happen is you will end up with this beautiful hotbar down here, as well as the ability to assign buttons with the quick cast abilities. Now, it's very important to note that the quick cast abilities will be determined by which hand you assign the quick cast to. So unlike in the previous version of the game, without the quick cast, when you wanted to use an ability, if you pressed that ability, it would automatically switch to that ability. So for instance, if I were to, let me actually just demonstrate this really quickly, because it's been a while since I haven't used quick cast. So if I were to, for instance, press F3, it would change the skill to F3. It wouldn't actually use the skill, as you can see. Now, I can change it back and forth between all my bindings, but it doesn't actually cast anything. I have to actually physically cast that myself by right-clicking or left-clicking the appropriate button. And this is why with the quick cast, you want to make sure that you're making the appropriate binding on the appropriate side that you would like to cast the ability on. Otherwise, it will quick cast it on the right or the left click. And this can be important, especially for the paladin who doesn't want his auras constantly flipping and flopping out in and out because he's, using smite or zeal or whatever. And, if you put them on the wrong hand, then it will not work properly. When you enable the quick cast ability, what you will see is that you can now cast the spell or the ability without switching to it. So for instance, I have a guided arrow on my Z key, and when I press guided arrow, it will use that ability, and when I release, it will automatically change back to the ability that I previously had in the slot. Same thing with my Valkyrie. So right now I have my Valkyrie in the slot, or let's switch to my decoy, and let's say I wanted to cast my Valkyrie. I would just press F1, and the Valkyrie would be summoned, which previously it was a lot different. Now, quick cast does have some little wonky things with it, but it definitely is very nice. Now, the hotbar, which is also very interesting, is the display skill bindings. Now, display skill bindings is actually really awesome, and I love it because I often forget what I have things hotkeyed to, especially when you have multiple characters, and the multiple characters may have different hotkeys set up. And if you wanted to find your hotkeys, you could always click, and then you could take a look and see what your hotkeys are, but it's much easier just to have those hotkeys displayed for you, which is what the display active skill bindings is. So definitely some very interesting things so far. We've got the Horadric cube button. We've got the loot to cube button for the controller users. The quick cast, which is absolutely excellent. And then we have the skill hotbar, which you definitely want to make sure you have turned on. The last one is an old one, and I had told you guys that this was an old one, and for some reason or another, no matter how many streams I go through, it is very strange that people don't know that this one exists, and so I'm going to show it to you. Now, so let's pretend you have a full inventory, and let's also pretend you have a full Horadric cube, and something drops on the ground, something absolutely amazing, like, oh my god, a 45 all-res Sacred Rondash dropped on the floor, I don't know. Let's say a Duriel shell dropped while you're in a run. And you can't pick it up, right? You're full, you can't pick it up, all right? For those of you who don't know this is really for just the people who are unaware. Those of you oldies like me, you already know this secret. If you open your inventory up and then you click on the item, it will go into your hand slot. This is actually an inventory slot. This hand slot does exist, and it does actually save with your character. You then press the escape key while the item is in your hand slot, and you save and exit. This will save the item in your hand slot. When you rejoin a game later, the item will be in your hand slot. This is a legitimate thing. It is not a bug. It is how the game is designed. Your hand is actually an item slot. And this means that when you pick an item up, that counts as one of your inventory spaces. If you have mules, for instance, a very common tactic with mules is to utilize the hand slot as extra storage space, because you can, of course, store extra items in that slot, and then you don't have to necessarily worry about one additional piece of equipment. This is really cool because in general, having that additional slot makes a big difference in storing items, taking items like with you between games. Like, for instance, if you're full and something good drops in the cow level and you guys are rushing, rush as fast as you can pick up the item, you can save and exit, join the next game before the game fills up and you get left behind, and then you can drop the item on the ground and sort your inventory. Same thing for when you're trying to steal an item. So let's say you're doing a pub run and you're full and a really good item drops on the ground like I don't know, a Griffin's Eye diadem, and you don't have any room. Your cube is full, your character is full, and there's no way that you can swap items because it's not always possible to swap an item. Like for instance, if my inventory looked like this, it would be impossible for me to swap the Griffin's Eye diadem in anywhere because it is a 2x2, which is 4 slots, and it doesn't fit anywhere in this madness, right? So Griffin's Eye diadem falls on the ground, and what do? Well, you open your inventory, you pick up the item, and then you save and exit. And then once you save and exit, you create a new game with a password, you drop the item on the ground, you sort out your inventory, and you make things work. And the item spot has always been a very fun one. So just a quick recap. Let me recap these for you real quick. All right, so that was the Horadric Cube button, the beautiful, beautiful Horadric Cube button that allows you to open up your Horadric Cube. The Loot to Cube skill, which is actually on the bar, as you can see right here. It is actually a physical skill that you can add to your bar on controller. The Quick Cast, a feature which allows you to quick cast things that are not currently on your left or right hand slot, which comes in extremely handy for a lot of classes. The skill hotbar, which allows you to see which skills you currently have bound. It does not, however, specify which hand they are bound to. You have to take a look at that. As you can see, F1, F2, F3, F4 are bound to my right hand, whereas Z and X are bound to my left hand, but it shows all of them. The item hand spot, which is the last on the list. The item hand spot is an excellent ability to be able to grab items and leave games with them, so that you can be a item bogarting boggart. As always, I do appreciate you guys and gals watching my videos, and I hope that you at least learn one new trick today, if not multiple. And as always, keep watching.